One.
Hello and welcome to the Creator Toolbox. My name is Chuck Tomasi, Senior Developer Advocate at ServiceNow, and joining me right over there is...
Good day, everybody. I'm Andrew Barnes, Developer Advocate here at ServiceNow.
All right, we've got our obligatory morning-style talk show coffee mug ready to go. I know, it's probably not morning. I know Mark is on, Dhruv is on, so we've got people all over. I should start out with my good old community live stream. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are and whenever you are. Welcome to Creator Toolbox. This is a show for you developers, builders, interested people that are looking to expand their knowledge about ServiceNow, the platform, the tools you can use, hence the name Creator Toolbox. And I'm going to show you something today that I recently ran into as recently as last Thursday/Friday. So this is pretty new stuff. Not new in terms of concept.
That's pretty recent.
It's pretty recent. But new in terms of something I had to solve. And in the spirit of the recently deceased community live stream, I'm going to show you how I approached this problem to convert a scripted integration, which, trust me, I have plenty of those skeletons in the closet. I think you do too, Andrew. Prior to IntegrationHub, we did everything with an outbound REST message v2, put in a script include, hooked it up to UI action or a business rule or something, and it would get triggered, and it worked. It worked very well, and we've shown how you can build and prototype and use the REST API Explorer and do all this fun stuff to get in and create those. But I'm here to show you a better way. As Carlos said, or maybe it was Devin. Devin on the chat was saying, I need to help my people understand that we need to get to IntegrationHub. I'm going to try my best to show you some value of why you want to stop building things in script. I mean, as fun as it is as a developer to do that, trust me, it's a lot of fun. It's more fun and more beneficial to you in the long term to build it in IntegrationHub. What would you say your key messaging around IntegrationHub is, Andrew?
Build faster and more maintainable. Like that's my yep. 5-second plug for IntegrationHub. So I have moved pretty much any integration development I do into IntegrationHub. Because then it's maintainable and understandable faster and easier for anyone else who touches it and really centralizes it and allows me to have visibility over what's happening. That execution area in IntegrationHub, such a time saver.
It gives other people an easier interface into your integration as well. If we were to write a script include, the only way to interact with it is going to be through another script. I mean, let's face it, it's going to be some server-side component, a UI action, a business rule, workflow. You get the idea. However, if you build it in IntegrationHub, you still have that avenue to approach it through the Flow API. But you've also got the ability for people to put it onto flows. So now you've opened it up to a much wider audience. So you as a developer still get to build those cool integration touchy-feely things to exchange data. And this has been the highlight of my career pretty much since the beginning, since soldering serial cables and hooking up modems and making, we won't go that, okay, dinosaur time. But it's still a thing on the internet with public protocols and APIs. So, and the maintainability and the reusability, again, if that doesn't resonate as a developer, you might want to have your head checked. I don't want to be a little harsh here, but let's come to reality. If I can get it done faster and easier and less maintenance, those are golden for me. All right, enough about the talk. Let's get into the screen sharing. So I will once again do my mysterious, where's my cursor? Apparently I'm on desktop 3 today, so let's do that. I don't even know where desktop 2 is. Oh, it's over there. Okay. And the problem statement du jour For those that don't speak French, that's the problem statement of the day. I'm sorry. I don't know what level of skill people are watching this, so I'm probably going to explain everything at an atomic level. Okay. The problem statement we have is, I inherited a project from a coworker. Sound familiar? It may for you, it is for me. So my good buddy, podcast co-host, longtime friend, Craig Stepp, created a URL shortener. We have been broadcasting these things through Bitly for years. Bitly/ServiceNow-TechNow, Bitly/TN85Reg, Bitly/SN-build-JS. They're easy for me to remember, easy for you to type. I can go on and on about them. But recently, we've had some, not reliability, but just general service issues with Bitly. I needed to change a redirect. Oh, that's going to cost you some money. You only get 5 of those a month. I had about 20. How do you do that? There was a bug in their software. I used up all my redirects and they couldn't fix it until after the event had happened. And I said, that's pointless. So I said, okay, Craig, let me take a look. Now, Craig has been using this for a number of years for Cloud Labs. And I do have the Cloud Labs instance over here, because when you go and use an electronic lab guide or get an instance, it'll say like clabs.link/something. Okay, rather than
so handy.
Oh, especially when you're dealing with long instance names that have, part of the lab name in there, .lab.service-now.com/ blah, 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 blah. Like, nobody likes those long URLs. We have URL shorteners for a reason. They've been around for a long time. Well, Craig, enterprising individual and software developer, decided I can write my own. Redirects aren't that hard. What he built was a simple PHP application with a MySQL database that says, where do you want to go? What do you want to call it? And he put in a couple other parameters so you can see, like the karaoke app. I can go to, we registered a new domain, goes to, hey, guess what? It goes to karaoke. Unfortunately, it doesn't do it in a new window, so I got to do that again. Sorry. And it contains a few basic fields. Let me make that a little bit bigger for you. We've got our slug, the part that goes after the link. We registered a domain, new domain, devlink.sn, so you'll start seeing that pop up in your newsletters and whatnot. He also had an interesting feature on there called a landing page, because he recognized that some organizations, especially behind the VPN, don't allow you to go directly to a URL. If you click a redirect, it'll go, not going to let you. Not Bitly, not Owly, not tinyURL. But if you go to the landing page, it will say, I'm going to take you there in 5 seconds, or you can click this link to go now. One of those deals. You've probably seen those, so that's an option we can turn on and off per link. Love it. Beautiful thing. We're talking about a few other design ideas now that I've implemented some of this. I recognize where we can do some improvements. We're having a discussion about that tomorrow. But for now, I've got an API to create links and update links, and it is currently driven through his wonderful script include that you see over here, which has a REST message and some methods on the back end.
REST message v2.
REST message v2. Yeah, use that a lot. You can practically type it without even thinking about it. And it does a post. It's not a post. It's one of those form URL encoded URL things where you're setting up query parameters, which is fine. That's how his PHP app ingests the information, and it's easy enough for ServiceNow to do that. So I reverse engineered his app. First of all, it was global. You can see from the script include that.
Okay.
It's global. I wanted it scoped so that we could hand off this spoke and use it for something else. He gave me 2 update sets, which were highly incomplete. Well, there's not even a table definition of where you're storing this stuff. So he gave me the ability to review this, and I built out the table. I call it links. And he had a couple fields in there that I didn't need, like location. He wanted to know if this was a SharePoint link or a OneDrive link or a Google Docs link. I didn't need that. Let's stick with the basics. So we can give it a label, call it Creator Toolbox, and CTB would be the slug. And just for fun, we'll just go to https servicenow.com. All right. And redirection URL is going to be the link I get back. Now, right now it doesn't do anything because I haven't built this yet, but that's what we're going to do. We're going to take his code, his API, interact with it, and get this information back, hopefully in the next, before this ends. This is going to be somewhat live coding happy hour style. I was playing around with it before. I can set the landing page, owner defaults to you. A lot of this is informational on the ServiceNow side. It doesn't go to the URL shortener, as you saw. There's no owner field over here. And he's doing the expiration date on there. I said, we got to fix that. You shouldn't have a separate cron job on your server doing the expiration. That's something ServiceNow can do very easily. Just make an active flag, and when it's inactive, it doesn't work. I'll take care of that on this end. So more of those design things that we're going to look at. See, it didn't do anything when I saved it. We got to go build that. So we are going to use his script include as a basis for what we need to put into our new action on the flow. Any questions?
Well, that seems like a reasonable thing to do. I'm all for it. I don't see any questions coming through.
Okay.
For me, this seems like a fairly easy lift and shift. Let's do it.
It always seems easy. If you say that, you can get caught up on the silliest things, which hopefully I've already skinned my knees a couple of times on this before. So I am in Flow Designer. This is a Quebec instance. This is my PDI. And so if you notice a few things that look a little different from your instance, cosmetically, like the oval pill here instead of rectangular, you'll know why. I'm going to create a new action. Let's call this create short link. Let's not spell it incorrectly. It's going to go in the URL application, create a short link from Craig's app. I don't know about the description, but we can always change that later. Okay, up comes Action Designer. Now, first thing we need to know is what do we need to pass to his system? I took that script include and I did a little reverse engineering on the documentation, and I came up with, here is my crummy old API doc for create link. Let me move that over a little bit. How's that? That's a little bit better.
Looks good.
Okay, might still be off the screen for some of the text, but I can see I need this content type. He passed this in his REST message on Cloud Labs. So I've got to put that in there somewhere. I've got query parameters and query parameters and query parameters to build. One is a function. It's either create, update, or he's got a couple other commands. This is the command that I wanted to do. So he doesn't have a get versus a post. Everything's pretty much post. And you know, sometimes you got to live with the APIs you're given.
Absolutely.
You can't tell the author, you should really be returning a 400 or a 500 if there's an error, but he doesn't. He returns that in a status and message payload. Okay, we'll deal with that. I've got an API key. We may need privacy shrubbery later. So no, I've already taken care of that. I apologize. I'll show you where I took care of that. Now, I'm going to jump back to this URL shortener and show you a fault here. Craig is getting his API key per application instance. He's got to have a different script include for every one of them because he's storing it in a system property. I went, no. Okay, that's not good. The API key comes from one of the things in the database out there on the URL shortener. So we can deal with that. Oops, where was my notes here? I give it a name. That's the label of the URL, Creator Toolbox. Expiration, he's dealing with that right now. It's a mandatory field. There's a bug in it when you update, but we'll figure that out later. The slug is optional. If I don't specify one, like CTB,
it'll auto-generate one.
Yes,
for me?
just like Bitly. You're going to get some letters and numbers, 5, 6 characters long, whatever it is. And obviously the long URL where I want people to eventually go. That landing page, whether I want to stop there or go directly to. And you can see my response comes back something like this. I've got a status. He gives me an ID, which is an integer. I've got a short URL. That's the redirect that we were going to originally use. He gives me back the slug. which seems a bit redundant to the URL ID. We're going to have a design discussion about that. And any messages like, hey, that slug is already in use, or that's an invalid API key. So if I get success or failure in the status, I better look at the message. There's a failure message, which I mocked up. So it gives me an idea of where we're headed for this. So I need those inputs. What do you think I should pass to this action? Would it be all those individual pieces, or would it make sense to send a link URL? I mean, a link glide record.
It seems like I would probably accept a glide record if you're building this just for one
table,
one table.
Yep.
But if you're trying to make this generic to accept, anything, then you individualize it or turn it into an object that a pre-step would build. So you could have a different action that's specific for a content type to build a payload if you needed and send it over.
Yeah, I'm thinking that we want to make this a little more flexible. Yeah,
I'm thinking individual inputs.
Yep. There's quite a few of them, so I agree with you on that, because this could be used for artifact manager. But I could give this application to somebody else, and they go, well, you're passing an artifact manager glide record. That doesn't do me any good on the action level. Now, in a subflow, it would. That's going to tear into the pieces that you need for whatever you're passing into the subflow. But I think to make this more generic, it should have its own individual parameters. So I start by clicking Create Input up here in the upper right-ish. And one of the things I know I'm going to need is the
long URL.
Long URL. We'll start out with something easy. Label is a string. We know we need that, right? We need key, name, and expiration. So let's make the mandatory stuff first.
Okay.
Key. What was it? URL, name, expiration.
Name, expiration.
Key, name, expiration. Oh, and URL.
And URL.
Okay. Key. No, we already got name. It's label. It's fine. We'll call it name. Keep things somewhat consistent here. I think I called it the field label on the table, but we'll resolve that later. Key is required for the API, but I'm not passing that.
Oh yeah, you're not going to pass that in.
That comes from my credentials. So it's going to be expiration, which we can set as a date or date time. I think it's a date time. We'll make that mandatory. And would we have a default value? We could. We could make this.
Wouldn't.
No, like something 100 years from now. It's got to be. It has to be passed. Okay, we'll leave that alone. We'll leave that alone.
Yeah, let's put one in there. But I mean, it's mandatory, so whatever you pick there is what everybody's going to use if you put one in there.
That's true. Okay, we'll leave it alone. You have to put something in there, even if it's the created on date from the record you passed in. We'll use some date or use the date picker. The URL was a URL. I believe that's one of our data types here. So I'm just specifying what goes in. Now we also have some.
I would make that a little more human readable than URL. I would say target or long or something.
Okay.
It's more specific.
Sure.
Because we have two URLs.
We do. We have the one we're sending out and the one we want to come back. Okay. So, well, we have the slug. We're not sending in the slug URL. That's what we get back. Gotcha. What else could we pass? Oh, landing page. Landing page. Now this was a choice. And do we have the option of getting a choice from another table in here? I know we do in some places. Oh, I don't see it.
Click the create new choice list drop down part.
Create new choice list down over here?
No. So there's under choice, name, max length choice, create new choice list.
Reference there. I knew I saw it somewhere before. Okay, so we can say, go get this from the URL shortener link table and use the landing page choice list. That way, if I have a yes, no over there, I'll have a yes, no here. If I have a true, false there, or a maybe, or an I don't know, or don't get, whatever choices are updated over there get updated here automatically. We are going to default this to yes, because we need something. Because we have come on, pick it. Uh-oh. That was just slowness. It was making me nervous, like something might have locked up. Save! We'll do a
Brad. Brad will be delighted that you saved. Again, on
often.
the name for landing page, I would probably say use landing page.
Always with,
because you really want this to be understandable to the consumer of your action.
You're right. We do. And we can, can we not change the variable? Oh, we could. Here is my...
Yeah, I think once you save it,
that's okay.
Read only at that point.
We won't see it unless we try to script something. Okay, so we've got name 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. What else do we have? Function is going to be hard coded in this. Key is going to be from the credentials 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I think we got them. Our inputs are set. Save again. Just appease the gods. Now, next step. I think we just go right into our...
Yeah, it feels like since we've got such atomic inputs here, we really go straight to the REST call.
This is much prettier than it used to be. I like this. So let's go to our... Now you probably won't see REST if your actual... In fact, this integration section may look a little different if you don't have an IntegrationHub license. So check your licenses. You can enable it on your PDI. So that's always fun. My connection, I'm going to use a connection alias that I'd previously set up. Now, this is kind of cooking show on you, but if I go to connections and credential aliases, you can see I have one called URL shortener, not imaginatively named, but you don't want to make it too hard for people to find it. And it is using a connection down here that says, here is my API endpoint that you should use as a default. Here is the connection alias. So if I do this in my dev instance and then I promote it to my prod, I'm going to make another connection and credential that match those names. Because all the flow is looking for is this alias called, it's kind of a pointer to a pointer thing. Where'd it go? SNC URL shortener. That's all it knows. And the base URL comes from that connection. So if you try to bring this over to prod and run it, and it says, I have no idea where you're trying to go. You didn't finish the job on the connection and credential part. I will be making videos of that when I get to, hopefully get back to that integration series soon. Okay.
And in a shipped action, for example, you wouldn't even ship a credential with that connection alias. So it would, you might ship a connection if it's a known endpoint, but no credential at all record would be shipped with that, so that you know for sure you need to go set this part up yourself.
And you may have a different connection for dev versus test versus prod, because you may have 3 different endpoints or 3 different instances out there in the cloud. You're saying, I don't want people in dev monkeying with my production AD server, so please stay away from that. We've set up a mock one over here for you to build new actions.
Yep.
Okay, so build request manually. Well, we don't have an open API spec for our tiny little PHP program, so our resource path comes from the base URL, so I think we're good. We're going to do a post, and this is where we start building out of the spec. We have query parameters and headers, so let's first get the header before we forget.
You needed to set that type for sure. You made it.
Content type was something I can never remember what the format of that is, so we'll do a little copy pasta.
Little copy pasta.
Oops, don't forget the application part. That would have been bad. There we are. Don't have application JSON I can spell. I can never remember if it's hex www form URL encoded XU. Forget it. That's why we have documentation, people. Okay, our query parameters, we know we need a few of them. And per the documentation, we need our key, which, look at this right here. Over on the data panel, we've got our credential value. All you have to do with API. This is one of the reasons I love API keys. That's it. So it's going to pass that. We have our function. And when I first messed around with this, I completely forgot the function part. And it really messed me up because it's like, why am I not getting a response? Oh, I'm getting a 200, but there's nothing in the payload. What? Come on, do something. Do something. You have to tell it what to do.
Tell it to create.
And then it's pretty much the rest of our parameters. And they have to be named whatever his app is expecting. So even though we called it, we may have called it label or target URL or use landing page, watch the case on some of these things. They will come back to bite you. So I have name, I have slug, I have URL, I have expiration, and I have landing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, plus my 2 for function and key, and I think we're good.
Can we pull open that doc? So I'm the kind of person who pulls open the doc and slides it to the right a little bit and make sure that I can see both of them at the same time.
Okay. Yes,
so
good idea.
Slide it the other way, and we'll notice
it disappeared
that landing
onto another screen and went off into the. Let's see if we can.
And we'll notice that landing needs to be fixed because it's landing capital page.
Yes. Did I spell that wrong? Oh, look at that. Yep, you are right. See, we would have got caught on that. It's landing capital page. So this is a good copy pasta exercise again. So it's expiration.
And everything else looks
fine. Good catch. Good catch. A side-by-side comparison always helps. Now it's just a drag and drop exercise. This you can do in your knowledge labs. Target URL is URL. Slug is slug. And remember, if we don't give it one,
I feel like you're taking some test. Match these things together. Drag them into the boxes.
Let's see. Credit card number goes with this one. Yeah. Does the monkey go with the banana? I can't remember. There is no payload for this. Yeah. So this is the part that I feel really bad about because I made a post with no payload. But when you're dealing with these, everything goes in the query parameters, and it kind of makes the payload for you. All right, that is that. Let's save. Then one of my favorite parts. We're going to get a response back from this. And it's a matter of what do you want to do with it? Well, was it Paris? We have this JSON parser. Was it Paris or Orlando? Where's our JSON parser?
JSON parser would be Paris.
Okay. Where'd it go? Do I not have it on this instance? Oh, that would be massively disappointing.
Really?
Utilities, script, payload builder, email, notification, log. Oh, where's the XML parser? There's XML.
No, it should be here.
There's JSON parser. We went right by it. Thank you. Somebody in the chat's probably going, it's right there, you blind. Okay.
So my thought here is I should run the REST step. And then that will get me a payload to put in here.
Okay. When you say run the REST step.
So execute our action. So run a test.
Will it work?
So we can get the response payload so that we can put it into the JSON parser.
Quick save. You want to see in the execution details what that payload looks like. So test, name, Andrew, expiration. It's not actually doing an expiration, so I don't care what that is. Target URL, google.com, slug, AJB, and we'll use a landing page. Test. This is, you may want to just test your API before you even start building the action in Postman or curl or something, just to make sure you've got the general idea of what's going out and what's coming back, and that there's no unknown variables within ServiceNow. I've done that a number of times. We did not do that today. And I may be regretting
I could not have said that any better, Chuck. That is I was going to mention, or you already have a payload that you've from a prior run in Postman before we even went to ServiceNow.
Or from documentation would help too. Mm-hmm.
I like to get a real one.
That's true. In case their API docs are a little out of date, which happens. Okay, you see I made a fancy icon here. Ooh. More of my PowerPoint talents at work there.
So let's drill into the step.
Okay, the JSON parser failed because it didn't have anything to work with, but let's go into the steps like you said. Ooh, we got goodness.
It looks like we've got goodness.
There's our query parameters. So, and down here is the
200
response body. He always returns a 200.
Everything's a 200.
Everything's a 200.
I think you mentioned that, and there will just be something in the message if it's
bothers me. So we have the message. I thought you could
status
click on the response message. It said success, so let's copy and pasta this out. I thought we could copy and paste from a little pop-up modal.
Yeah, I thought that had a pop-up modal as well. But
this guy does, but that's not what we're looking for. That's the response headers. Anyway, let's see what happens with that. So we go back here. We got a response. Paste it in there. Look at that. It generated us. No, please don't go back. I hate it when you scroll too far and the browser goes, oh. Let's look at the URLs. Hold on. I gotta zoom out a little bit here. URLs. There's AJB. Sweet.
Nice.
Edit it. We got data in here, so our create function is actually working. I'm happy. Oh, it even sent along the display value and got interpreted right. We didn't have a time zone issue. I would have sworn we did. Okay, so we've got our sample payload, and because my font is a little big here, we're going to go to generate target. Still a little big, so let me back that off. Yeah, still a little big.
So big friend of the show, Corey, is watching, and he says sometimes that he uses that as a URL shortener as an interview question, which is not an uncommon interview question, but how to do it on the ServiceNow platform is a new spin on it. And I love this as an interview question because you can really get in depth with this, because eventually you're basically building a file system, and you can go really too far with this question.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing ServiceNow won't do for you is the redirect part. So you got to have that domain out there with some sort of redirector client working for you. But yeah, you can build the rest of it. But nobody's built Flow yet? Ooh, we are in uncharted waters today. Okay, so we pasted in our sample payload. We hit generate target, and look what it does for me. It creates this thing called root, which I have learned to not mess with. Sometimes it just like destroys my object and I don't have a good day. I've tried relabeling some of these, but you know what? For the purposes of the JSON parser, I don't care. And for the purposes of this exercise, let's not. Okay. And then everything else comes back as string. Actually, URL ID is an integer. What? We only have these things that you can return in JSON parser. Well, that's fine and dandy. We'll leave it as a string. If it's quoted, fortunately, JavaScript is loosely typed.
It's JavaScript. The variable objects are made up.
Yeah.
And the types don't matter.
There you go. Thank you for the whose line is it anyway reference. We have to make a t-shirt of like that. What was it? The variable types are made up and
the variables are made up and the types don't matter.
That's awesome. I love that. I'm going to steal that. All right, so we've got our output of our JSON parser down here. Ta-da! There's the 5 things that we expected in our payload. We don't have to do any scripting to say this goes with that. We could, if we wanted to get down to the touchy-feely on each property, but we don't want to, just for speed and elegance. Now, here's the part I like. I do my create output here. This is the output of the action. This is what somebody using a flow will see and use. So I call it generically response because I'm not the world's best architect when it comes to names. I'm going to boost that back up to 125. And I'm going to create an object because I can see from my JSON parser, it's just an object. Now, here's the fun part. If I exit edit mode and I drag this root thing up here, it does all of that property makey stuff for me. So let's do save. We'll do another test. And we say this one we'll call, I think I might already have one called Chuck. I'm not sure. I ran out of variable. Like you say, the variable names are made up. I have one called Chuck. Maybe we'll do that when we update something. So let's create one named after Brad. Brad's not here.
Brad's not here.
Brad's cool short URL. And expiration, again, pick a random one because it really doesn't matter. If you pick one in the future, it comes to the top of the list. So we'll do that. Target URL, HTTPS, bradhilton.com. That's when you question, why did I get a vanity URL? Now, did it create, we passed it a slug for you. So it created this slug AJB. Let's not pass a slug for Brad. We want to test that part of the logic too. And let's not do a landing page. I didn't even show you what the landing page does. So I
understood, but
yeah. I mean, it shows something and I've got to get Craig to fix it. But if we go to devlink.sn/AJB, trust me, I will be deleting this demo data, so don't think it's going to be a wonderful thing. There's our landing page that says, hey, here we are. We got a couple seconds to hang out, so you can click it if your company doesn't like it, and we go to Google. Right, so we're going to do, you know what, there may not be, I didn't even check if there is a bradtilton.com, but maybe we'll get a 404 or this domain is available kind of thing.
All right.
We'll run our test. And think about it. That's a pretty easy thing for most people to fill in if they're dealing with an integration. A couple of fields that are required, not too bad.
Absolutely.
Before I see the execution details, I like to see if the data's there. Ooh, looky there. Brad's cool URL. And it's
auto-generated a slug.
3YI. Yep. So in case you just like to say that, it kind of looks like Leet speak. We can edit it. And Craig's also got this QR code generator on this side. So if you wanted to, you could see that in a modal or something. I'm not sure if we're going to keep that on the client in the next generation or not, or we'll put that on ServiceNow too. But it's a nice feature to have. And if we go to CNY3I, it goes, yeah.
Yeah, it's not a site you want to go to.
Let's not. And I closed the thing again. I really need to do like a command click on there.
Awesome.
With HTTPS, it should have worked. And again, I can see the execution details. Now, this time, ooh, what happened to my JSON parser? We still have a problem to fix here, Andrew. This is now live coding happy hour territory.
All right.
Our JSON parser is not happy. So what happened?
Did we actually pass in the data to the JSON parser?
This time I can do that. I can click my, you know what? I think you're right. I think you're heading in the right direction. I don't remember
doing that step.
I don't either. We got a little excited, and yes, we forgot to say source data is empty up here. We kind of need this piece right here where the flashing circle is yelling at me. So we'll use our new data pill picker that looks like it's taking some sort of high school test. Fill in the ovals completely. Use our rest step, response body.
There we go. That should make it happier.
And just for fun, let's get rid of Brad.
And regenerate it?
And regenerate it.
Okay.
I don't think it's going to come up with the same variables, but test Brad's cool link 2. Expiration.
The return of Brad's cool link.
The cool link strikes back. Target URL, https, servicenow.com. Funny how that just rolls off your fingers. We'll say no. We didn't validate that piece, but we can do that now. And this time we'll look at execution details first. Hey, no errors. That's always a good sign. And we have a response object down here. And
that looks pretty great.
And if I click the response object, looky there. I have an ID, which I can then go put back into the record. I have my status as success, which I could evaluate if I were using a flow API, or even in the flow. You know, if I'm using the flow or the flow API, I could generate an error message or log something, or be able to put that on. So this is pretty fun. This is pretty fun.
That is pretty fun.
The thing you need to, yeah, go ahead.
The only thing that I would add, if I was creating this myself, is I would add an error checking step to handle that for my users so that they don't have to build that into the flow directly.
Well, let's talk about that. Where would you put that? Because we don't really have an if conditional thing in here that we can put into the action builder. So how would you approach that?
That's a good question. So I would either do one of two things. I would either, so first off, I would break out the status and error into their own objects in the output, so that it's easier to like consume them, because that's the standard pattern that we're using, sort of like how the REST step has them broken out. You've got the response body and you've got the status code and the error message broken out as separate objects. So I might start with that.
You mean like status here?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And that's pretty simple. And then I would create a subflow that invokes my action and handles the error checking it as a shippable, like that's how I would ship this.
Yes, and that was actually the next step I was thinking of. Don't go right to a flow, because as we've mentioned in the past, so if we were going to do the status, we could pull the status right out of root status. You just think, oops, I'm still in edit mode. So you're thinking something like that?
Yep.
Okay. Interesting. So you don't have,
and I know I already have that data, but
yeah,
just the pattern of where I expect it to be and how I expect to use it.
Good point.
Is as a separate variable.
Megahertz is saying he's seen a script step after the JSON parser, and I've done this as well. I let the JSON parser do the heavy lifting of create the object for me, and then perhaps a script. One thing I've noted when I have an array of objects coming back from the payload is it's tempting to go, great, now run a for each over there. We had an issue, I think it was in Orlando or Paris, might have been Orlando, because I was building data streams last summer, and if the count was 0, your flow would crash. I mean, it wouldn't like skip the for each and go, I don't have anything to iterate, so forget you. It would just hard crash. You'd get an error. I don't know if that's been addressed, but since then I've made it a standard practice to return a count. So I put a script after that and say, look, how many things are in this object? So I could put an if before my for each.
So nice.
It's sort of belt and suspenders, and it may be moot at this point, but it's one of those things that once you're burned, you kind of make it a practice. And don't.
It's so true.
The other thing I wanted to point out is when I publish this, let's actually publish this on this instance so that it's available to our users. We're fairly confident that we've got it going. The come on, save. It's always the demos that go slow. I now have create code snippet. And it's very common for me to invoke one of these from, say, a UI action. So you can copy and pasta this, but notice down here where it says response equals outputs response, and that's my object. Unfortunately, it is called response. Watch these if you want to process them. This one should probably be called status equals outputs substatus. If I was going to drill into that object, I still have to, I'm sorry, I was looking at outputs. Never mind. These down here, I totally missed them because I was working directly on outputs. Result.get outputs returns you that object of all your answers. So I had to dot walk into there before I took your tip of pulling the status out manually. I was trying to go outputs.status, and it said, I don't have anything for you today.
Said, I don't know what you mean.
It should have been outputs.response.status. So be aware of your output data structure. I've gotten caught by that as well.
Nice. So it feels like we have reached victory. We have a working action.
We do.
That, invokes our bit.ly or our short URL. I love how it's so synonymous that I'm like, short URL means bit.ly.
Yeah, it kind of does. It does now. I mean, I used to say tiny URL for years, but.
So it feels like we've reached a good wrapping up point.
We have. And like you said, the next logical step, I'm going to stop my screen share. The next logical step for us to take would be to build those subflows that can then do some of that error checking and handling for us that we could incorporate into other places. That would be the standard architecture that I would use if I was putting out a new spoke, is let's build the actions to do a specific thing. Create a link, return a response. Did it work or did it not? But the subflow is the part that other people are actually going to employ. And that's where you can say, here comes a record of this type. Or I like to pass entire records now because it just saves you from so many other parameters.
It's so nice to pass whole records. And with the subflow architecture, design, it would be very easy for you to take a generic example and say, here's how you can do it for a record as your input for a subflow, and they can just copy that and change the data pill for the field references in their record they're sending in to
right.
where they go into the action, and move on from that point so that it's consumable by their users in Flow.
I hope that this video was helpful to you to see how quickly you can take the docs, maybe a previous example of how something was built, and then turn this into an action that you can put into a subflow, into a flow, and work up from there. Very quick, very easy, very reusable. Any final comments? Any announcements we've got?
We have got, CreatorCon is coming up quick. So, it is right around the corner. We are working fast on and furiously on generating the awesome content for our Knowledge and CreatorCon sessions coming up in May. You've got a breakpoint coming out tomorrow that is with Chris Haas around the App Engine Studio, I believe.
Looking forward to that. Yeah, that's going to be a good one. And then we've got Tech Now next week on App Engine Studio with both Valerie Myers-Christensen and Chris Haas. So if you haven't registered for that, there's still time. This is being recorded on what day is it? Is it the 16th? It's the 16th of March 16th. Today. That's how hard we're working. We don't even know what day it is anymore.
What day is it again?
1 week. You have 1 week because next Tuesday there won't be a breakpoint. It's the last Tuesday of the month. No, it's not. It's the 23rd. The last Tuesday is the 30th. It's supposed to be on the last Tuesday. I think we're moving to that. Anyway, Tech Now next week. Sign up for that. We're still using bit.ly, so bit.ly/TN85reg.
Nice.
But that's probably the last time I will say a bit.ly link.
And App Engine Studio just released last week. So if you don't know what that is, that's okay. Go register for that Tech Now episode and learn more about it, and listen to the podcast tomorrow. If you're watching this today, or go get the podcast from your local podcast area with Chris Haas. So both of those product managers, Valerie and Chris are awesome to engage with, and we're really excited about App Engine Studio.
Thank you very much, Andrew, for all the help, the suggestions, the button pushing, and we will see you. I'm still working on this sign off. We'll see you soon, if not sooner.
Awesome. Thank you, everybody.
Bye.